Hey, I'm Brian. I'm a blacksmithing instructor, and this is a project for my beginning blacksmithing class. For this first hook, I'm using 3/8 inch round mild steel, and we'll start by drawing a taper. We want to pinch down the very end of the bar, and we hammer at an angle, not parallel to the anvil face. Work at the far edge of the anvil to avoid hitting the face of the anvil with your hammer. By rotating the bar back and forth 90 degrees, we'll form a short, square taper. To lengthen that taper, we now move away from the end of the bar to where our taper joins the rest of the bar. We also want to lower the angle of our hammer slightly. Continuing to move back like this will make the taper longer and longer. We can stop when our taper is about 2 to 3 inches long. Now at a lower heat, we can blend our hammer marks together and smooth out that taper by pulling the bar backward as we hammer lightly in one place. We always draw a taper square because it's the most efficient way to move metal, but now we want our taper to be round like the original bar. I turn my bar so the corners of the square cross section are facing up, and I'll forge those down with firm blows, leaving the cross section octagonal. Now we'll use lighter hammer blows while turning the piece back and forth to round it up. The goal isn't a perfectly round shape, but rather to put enough facets in it that it appears round to the eye. Here's a side view of that same process. Start at the end, forge a short taper, work that transition to extend the taper, smooth and blend, knock down the corners, then round it all up. Once we have our rounded taper, it's time to bend it into a hook. Place the piece over the horn or edge of the anvil and bend it down about 90 degrees. Now we stand that point upright and tap back towards ourselves to pull it into a curve. The initial bend may not be perfect, so spend some time here refining the shape. I think this hook looks best when the tapered part is parallel to the parent bar. But for this project, I actually bring the taper a little closer than parallel, and then I balance the tip of the taper on the horn and use the very heel of my hammer to give the tip a little kick. This makes the tapered section look parallel with the parent bar, even though it's got some curves in it. Here's another view of that step. The tip of the taper sits on the horn while my hammer moves slightly past the horn, rather than striking directly against it. The anvil is lifting the tip up, forming this shape. Now we'll cut our bar off on the cutting hardy so we can work the other side. I'm hitting right on top of the hardy and rotating back and forth 90 degrees. I'll stop when I've cut about 3/4 of the way through. Then I'll bend the bar until it breaks off. We don't want to cut all the way through on the hardy or we'll launch the cut piece across the room and we can hurt our tools. If you have enough heat left after making the cut, you can go right into drawing the second taper. It's the same process as before. Short square taper at the end of the bar. Gradually draw the taper longer. Light blows to clean up the shape. Knock down the corners. Then round it up. Before I get too far with the second hook, here's a quick way to see if it's close in size to that first hook. I hold the first hook near the edge of the anvil, mark the length with my hammer, and then compare the other hook to it. If you're way off, just straighten the second hook back out and try again. Try to make sure that the taper and the parent stock are both straight as they come into the curve. Here the tapered side looks okay, but the parent stock has a subtle curve in it, highlighted here. I'll put the hook on the horn and lightly hit the apex of that curve to push it straight. You can see now the entire hook has a much more pleasing shape to it. I'll add that same small kick to this side, and then I'll brush off scale. Next, let's make sure both hooks are coplanar, meaning that they're in line with each other. You can see the piece rocks when I lay it this way because the hooks aren't aligned. I flip it over and I'll work lightly down each hook to align them. If they're significantly out of line, just put one side in the vise and twist the other side to align it. Now let's move on to the second hook, made from 1/4 inch square stock. The process is similar, but this time we'll keep the stock square. Begin by drawing a short taper at the end with a high hammer angle. Lengthen the taper by moving to the transition and lowering your hammer angle. And now use light blows to blend, smooth, and straighten the taper. Now again, we're going to keep this cross section square, so there's no need to knock down the corners. For this one, we're going to create what's called a pigtail, but we want to do this on the diamond. This means that we rotate the bar 45 degrees so the edges are facing up. To make the pigtail, place the very end of the taper over the far edge and bend it 90 degrees. Turn it over and roll it back toward yourself to form a tight curl. You can trap the curl against the anvil side to close it further if you need to. Now, by doing this on the diamond, the corner of the stock will flow around the curl. While bending the hook, we'll need to hammer on the pigtail, so we actually want to cool it off first so we don't squish it. For many years I've quenched the pigtail in water, but in a recent video, Dennis Frechette cooled a curl by simply pressing his hammer face against it for a few seconds. It's amazing what you can learn by watching other people work. I'll include a link to Dennis's channel so you can check it out. He's an incredible blacksmith. The hard part here is keeping it on the diamond, as it always wants to fall towards one of the flats. Work at a high heat and use light blows, but if it does start to roll onto a flat, just straighten it back out and try again. Here it is from another angle. Unlike the last hook, I'm not worried about keeping the taper parallel with the bar, I'm just aiming for a gentle round shape. Now we'll cut the hook to length. A good rule of thumb is to place the cut about 3 hook lengths away from the end of the bar. This time I'll cut it on all 4 sides before breaking the piece off. You could also just cut on 2 sides like we did before. I just wanted to show you both options. Now this is another area where beginners struggle. When you hold the hook, make sure that your tongs reach past the hook and grab onto the bar itself. This provides a much better grip and makes it feel like you're working with a straight bar, which really helps while you're drawing this taper. We repeat the same process as before, keeping the stock square. Because we're going to bend the second hook away from the first, that means we need to bend the pigtail toward the existing hook. If you bend the wrong direction, you'll end up with a C shape, but that's easy to correct in the next step. Cool the pigtail and roll the second hook on the diamond. Be careful with your hammer blows here, as it's easy to flatten out those sharp corners which we've worked so hard to establish. Since we have a square cross section, let's add a decorative twist up the middle of this hook. Secure one end in a vise and use tongs or a twisting wrench to rotate the other side. You can usually get away with 2 or 3 full rotations depending on the length of the hook. Here I'll twist slightly past the final position, then back a little bit since the metal has some spring to it. Make sure the hooks are coplanar while it's still in the vise. Brush to remove scale. This also gives the steel some shine. While these are warm, you can brush on paste wax, beeswax, or boiled linseed oil to keep them from rusting. Alright, see you in class.